Hello, money queens and listeners. Welcome to Women Behind the Millions. Let's meet the women behind the millionaires, the women supporting, guiding, celebrating women with their wealth. You will hear from women millionaires, how they got there, what they wish they had known, what got them to be a millionaire, the emotional side, the spiritual side, the practical side of wealth. You'll also get to meet the women behind the scenes helping make it happen. Let's dive into Women Behind the Millions. I am Jessica Weaver, your host, best-selling author of 3 books, wealth advisor, and founder of the Women's Wealth Boutique. Let's start meeting the women. Hello, listeners. Hello, money queens. I am Jessica Weaver, your host of Women Behind the Millions. I am so excited. We have 2 powerhouse ladies on with us today. We have Melissa Myers, one of our amazing financial advisors at the Women's Wealth Boutique, the author of the best-selling book, Going Rogue. And then today, she's got it up there.
Shameless plug.
And Melissa's brought on her dear friend, Leigh Lohman. She is a realtor. She's also a lover of people, a Christian. She loves to see and make other people shine. She's a realtor. She's also a health coach. So we have a lot to go into today. I'm so excited. Welcome, ladies, to Women Behind the Millions.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Great to be here.
So Melissa and Leigh, how long did your relationship go back to? When did you start connecting with each other?
I think we met in 2012.
Okay, about a decade. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And were there a lot of synergies? What made you both connect?
Well, we started out and we met through what's called, and it's international. So it's BNI, which is Business Networking International. Melissa, correct me if I'm wrong, was just going out on her own as one half of her Carmel financial planners. And we were in this group together, and I had just joined a real estate group and was taking my real estate experience in a different direction. So we were both in that group trying to just grow our businesses and meet other professionals. And I would say from my thought, like I immediately clicked with her because, as you know, she's an amazing human. So
Thanks.
right back at you. Yeah. And then we've been able to attract similar types of clients and refer back and forth to each other. And for me, I have sustained relationships that have lasted a decade because of Leigh. So I really appreciate her knowing who to connect me with. And she's a great connector.
You can tell right away there's a lot of respect and gratitude for each other. And I think that's huge. Why do you ladies think women are so good at connecting relationships? Because I can tell right away, right? You have that mutually beneficial relationship. You're both putting energy into the relationship. You're both receiving it back out. Why do you think women are so good at that?
I think we're natural nurturers. And so I think when you make a connection with another person, especially another woman, then it's really that kind of a connection, I think, is so rare that you want to nurture it. And, in my experience, I find someone in my life like Melissa, then I would really like to help as best I can to see her be successful and believe in her and, know what kind of a person that she is. And when you find that kind of connection with someone, it's really rare and it's something you just want to make sure you hold on to.
It's worth putting the work into.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what about you, Melissa? The same thing. We're nurturers. We are maternal. We have that instinct in us. What do you think we're so good at? Or why do you think we're so good at being relationship focused?
I think all of that. And I think when you can recognize leadership skills in other people, you want to help lift them up and let them continue to flourish and grow into their place of being and where they're supposed to be. And Leigh has, we've shared book titles and really have the perspective and the mindset that we're not done. We're always going to be evolving and growing and impacting others in different
capacities in which we, interact with them. And from a professional perspective, from a personal perspective, from just a faith and giving back perspective in the community. Sure. I think when you have all of those pieces lined up, you want to be with other people who share that.
Yeah. That's a great point. Are in alignment. I love that you said, and I think this is it too, that nurturing in on the professional level, but the personal level too. Right? I just don't want to know about you on the professional side. I want to know who you are as a person, what your kids are like. It's a different conversation women usually have.
Yeah.
Especially at networking events. And since we started with this and brought it up, I think this is a huge piece for women to learn, especially if you're in sales or service mode, you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, is that relationship as you build. A lot of people go into it thinking, I'm going to show up this networking event to get leads, right? To fill my ship, to fill my boat. But I feel like that's where a lot of people get it wrong. How do you find networking most beneficial when you start to go to networking events and explore those kind of organizations, building those relationships and things? What's been the best way you've done it to see the most success?
Well, I think you hit a key word in that everything is a relationship business. So when you care about people and you want to create a relationship with them, because when they know you and they like you and they trust you, they're more likely to not only refer to you, but use you themselves. So that's the highest compliment is, take care of me and then also take care of my people. But if they don't know that they can trust you and they don't know who you are as a human, then they're not as likely. And that you can always see when someone's just after the paycheck or what can I take from this? And people feel that and it's an instant turnoff, or at least it is for me, but that's an instant turnoff. And so that's just never how I've run my business or even run my life, in the sense of what can I get out of it? I mean, when Melissa and I met in BNI, their tagline is givers gain. So what can I give to someone in order to, yes, I gain something in return, even if it's just a lifelong friendship. But
what about you, Melissa?
When I was at the previous institution before I went out on my own, my job was to foster relationships and go into these different banking offices in which I didn't live in the community. I didn't have roots. I was really really dependent on the confidence that the bankers and managers had in me to put me in front of their clients. And I'm an observer, and I watched other advisors going into those offices and basically saying, "Hey, what do you have for me today?" Mm-hmm. And immediately that was a turnoff. And I decided I was going to operate differently in how I approached it. And so mine was, "Hey, what are you working on? How can I help you?" And showing up and going to a Christmas party or going to their events, going snowmobiling in the middle of winter, on my day off, and building those relationships and letting them see authentically me and letting them know that professional me, I want to help them. And that's what I was able to bring into the BNI relationship. And Leigh and I actually both were presidents at one time. So we were able to help support each other in those roles. And I had to fill big footsteps because she was there out of me. And I was always appreciative of everything that she did because I was able to learn from her by observing.
Yes, both of you bring up so many good points. The observing, I love that trick. Being observing, giving, instead of, I feel like we're always so quick to jump out and talk and speak. Being quiet and observing, especially clients, right? What is going on in their mind, letting them vent, letting them have some quiet space to figure things out as well. And Leigh, as you're talking about, it's almost like that desperate energy that comes up when people are just there for the sale. You can feel that desperate energy right away. And it makes you think, well, they don't even care about me. So why would they even care about my clients that I'm going to refer to them either? And I think it's so important for us to make sure that we're not going into these events feeling that desperate energy on ourselves, but feeling more abundant, we'll say, because we talk about this a lot on this podcast and in our works, is that gratitude, and you're more willing to give when you have that gratitude right from the start as well. Leigh, what got you into real estate?
It's funny. I graduated from college and I was bartending when I was finishing that up, and I just knew that that wasn't where I wanted to be any longer. And I started working I have a degree in psychology with an emphasis in autism spectrum disorders. And I was working at a private school in an autism classroom. And as much as I loved it, I wasn't making any money. And so I couldn't quit my bartending job and sustain paying my bills. So my sister at the time worked at a title company. She wasn't my sister at the time. She at that time worked at a title company. But and so she said, we're looking for someone to come in and examine before we issue a title policy, examine the piece of real estate. And I was like, okay, well, how hard can that be? And so I took that job and I actually really liked it. I learned a lot of skills that I still use in my job today that I don't think a lot of people, a lot of realtors have, in the sense that I completely understand what I'm looking at when I see a title commitment, which is before they issue the policy. And from there, I was approached by a development company that was local to the city that we live in, where their headquarters is, but they had satellite offices in 9 different states. And it was developing where people would buy a vacant piece of property and build their second home or their dream home on either waterfront or mountain view property. And then 2008 hit. And so we had to get creative, and we turned all of what we owned as vacant land into distressed real estate and made ourselves into a brokerage and sold that on behalf of the banks that we had the loans with. So, and then from there, I just decided to get my real estate license and go into it residentially, and, the rest is history. So I started title, and I think I've touched, other than banking, I've touched pretty much each aspect of what goes into a transaction for my clients or for myself too. But yeah.
That's got to be a strength, having been on so many different sides of the real estate process.
Yeah.
And a psychology background. Has that helped you in the work? Listen, I know. I feel 99% of our work is psychology. Probably should majored in it.
Yes, I think so. I've always been a people person to begin with, but then to understand, what might be, I'm no psychologist by any means, but maybe a little bit ahead of the general population as far as being able to relate to someone or understand where they, this is a very emotional thing, and having the ability to slow it down and really try to understand where they're coming from. But
okay.
So I do feel like that's been helpful. Yeah.
Very cool. That's such an interesting background. Do you miss the work at the school and with the autistic children at all?
I do. I think that what I've tried to then do is donate wherever I can, time and money, as far as working in the schools. I still go into the schools now through a program that our church has. And so I'm not in an autism classroom, but I am in a classroom with, I always end up with a student that needs a little extra mentorship. So I feel like I still can use what I was originally interested in and what I went to school for, but just in a different volunteer aspect now.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. I know. Well, let's talk about giving back, because I know, Melissa, you're very adamant about giving back and your clients. And Leigh, I noticed that with your profile right away, your generosity. How do both of you, I want to give this question to both of you, how do both of you feel that generosity has led to even more success? And you always think about this if you want, but a lot of times and I feel this at times too, right? I'm so busy, right? running our firm, taking care of my clients, and then 2 young kids at home. We can feel very scarce with our resources, time, money, things like that. But in the end, especially women, we give back 40% more than men. We want to give back. But we forget that that can lead to more and more blessings coming in our life.
Yeah. So because of my background in autism, I can give you a specific example. I started to donate time and money to some clients or friends of mine that I had connected with through like swimming lessons for my daughter when she was a baby. Like there was another mom in the class, and they ended up having a child with on the autism spectrum. And so they have gone so far into now they have a behavioral clinic for people that wasn't offered here. But through meeting them and then helping them with their golf outing and then donating to that and, working the golf outing and things, it's turned into a couple of real estate transactions because I aligned myself with them and then they trusted me to help them with their real estate needs. So, that was a long time ago, and they still to this day, they just listed a commercial property that I don't focus on, but with my business partner who does. So, it's still a connection that I have as far as giving back and trying to stay connected.
And I don't mean this to sound like, I know that's not the reason you did in the first place, right?
No.
You did because where your heart is. But I think it's also very cool when people can see your heart, where your heart is with your business and who you are as a person. And then they have similar values and generosity, and you become aligned, and it makes it a much more trusting relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What about you, Melissa? How about you? I know one of your big values is giving back and being very charitable, and your generosity it shows as a person. How have you seen it lead to more success?
One of my favorite stories is one that wasn't related to my success per se. When there are events that are like a kind of anything leadership or personal growth, I like to invite a guest or several guests and help them grow and fill up and learn and expand personally or professionally, what not. And one of my favorite stories that has come out of that is I had invited somebody to an event, and it was about 2.5 years later where she told me that it was life-changing.
Wow.
And she wouldn't have gone had I not invited her. And it was life-changing in the way that she conducts her business since that event. And I just feel like those little deposits that I can make into somebody else is going to impact another individual, but because she's a business person, it's impacting many.
Yes.
And so that's that makes me happy at the end of the day.
Ripple effects of that. That is huge.
Yes.
And I want to also, I don't think we talked about this on our initial podcast with Melissa and Holly. You were recently on Dancing with the Stars.
Yep. Local stars. Dancing with the local stars.
With the local stars, with your hometown. And that was all about charity as well.
Yeah, that sure is. Yep.
Who was that fundraiser or charity supporting?
So it's been, I think it was 13th year that it had been in existence. Mary Kendall, a local philanthropist here in town, had this idea one day. And, when you have an idea, one thing leads to another. And
that's what I love about women. We really put ideas in action.
Oh, and it's a phenomenal event. So she decided, let's do a little fundraiser. Let's see what we can do. And it was like no big expectations. It wasn't a fundraising goal, but just let's have some fun and get some people together and watch some dancers. So in the year that I did it, we had around 50 dancers, multiple teams. And part of our contribution is helping create awareness and promoting the dance, but also bringing in money. And the money after this year, it was a record-breaking year. After all of the bills and expenses were paid, we netted $258,000 that is going right into our community for local food pantries and feeding people who need something.
That is incredible.
Yes.
And I love how pulling people together being able to give back so much more. I never thought possible. $250,000. That is huge. How has that experience changed your life?
It's through friendships. It is life-changing. Personally, approaching 50, I not only dance, but I did 2 cartwheels in front of 2,400 people.
Like cartwheeling me, right?
Confidence boost.
I have to say, being on stage, because I saw the dance, it was amazing. I'll clear the whole routine, amazing. It's got to boost your confidence level being on stage dancing like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it was really neat because you could look down off of the stage and see the whites of the eyes of the people right there. And you could have that eye to eye connection with them. And you knew you were giving a good show, that you're doing something awesome for the community. And it was phenomenal being behind stage, like the ego part of it. When you
feeling that celebrity, that inner celebrity.
Oh, now I get why celebrities want more celebrity, right? Because you could hear the roar of the audience go around the room, and it just like amped everything up. And we're like, yeah, we're gonna go out there. I was on a team of 4. There's 2 guys and 2 gals. That one of the gals was the professional dancer that taught us what to do, and we had a couple months to rock it.
It's got to be that adrenaline kick. It must be huge. And I agree, having that celebrity moment, like finding that stage, whether it's receiving an award, doing a presentation in front of, even 20 people, 50 people, hundreds of people, that celebrity moment gives the soul wonders.
Yes. And then what's really cool too is afterward, us local stars, we are able to kind of hand the key off to the next dancer. So I was able to nominate some people.
Very cool. So Leigh's gonna be up on that stage stand.
I am. She's good.
Have you had a celebrity moment like that, Leigh, that kind of just made you feel like you're on cloud 9?
I grew up a dancer, so that was one of the reasons I said yes. But so I've had a couple of those, but nothing like what Melissa just described. So, and not in a very long time.
I encourage everybody who's listening to this, be open to those moments, because they really will be something you'll never forget, and it will just raise up that confidence level. I don't know, what would you say, Melissa? Your worth, your value, how you see yourself expanding, going beyond what you think you can even do. Did you ever picture yourself on stage dancing like that?
I wanted, from the first time that Dancing with the Stars was performed, I knew I wanted to, and you kind of have to be asked to be in it. So I manifested it. It took about 13 years. But, like wearing a costume and you're not sure it's going to stay up, and doing a cartwheel in high heels and doing those things in front of 2,400 people. And it pushes you in a good way right into that confidence area, where sometimes I think we as women start to beat ourselves up and not value ourselves, knowing our worth, and really letting a negative mindset creep in sometimes. And
yes,
that was something that helped me really reestablish my own truth and purpose. So
yes,
it was a great experience.
Thank you for bringing that up, that mindset, the imposter syndrome. Have you ever had that, Leigh, in your business? And every day, is it a lot of men or women, or is it a healthy mix?
I think it's a healthy mix, but I think that women are more prone to admitting it and being more vulnerable. So, but yes, I mean, I have to remind myself every once in a while, like, I do know what I'm doing and I am good at this. So, and I didn't make up all the things that I've worked for. So, but I do feel that. I think sometimes it's important to feel that way in order to remain in a sense of humility, so that it's important to be confident, but humble at the same time. And that's kind of a fine line to walk.
Yes, very true. We can't let our egos get away from us. I think that is where a lot of women struggle. I was just on a trip with our creative director, and we were talking about all the different advisors and mindset was the number one thing that kept coming up. Our mindset and our own, getting in our own way all the time. Very cool. Now, Leigh, you also are a health coach. How did you get into that? I want to talk about this and how you balance being a health coach and a realtor. Yeah, kind of where's your heart right now? Where does it feel? But let's first start with what got you into becoming a health coach.
That's always so. My husband and I joke around all the time because he has like 1,000 hobbies, and I'm like, what is my hobby? Like when I'm bored, I clean. Like I'm boring, or I read, or something. But he's like, your hobby is working out, and being a health coach is not necessarily just about working out, but that has always been something that has been incredibly important to me. And then after having kids, it's being very mindful of what I put in my body and what they put in their body. And because I like to just be a lifelong learner, I decided one day that it might be a good idea because I don't know if I must have manifested it somehow, but it just keeps popping up. This school called the Institute for Integrative Nutrition just kept popping up on like my news feeds and things like that. And so I was like, what is this? And so I clicked on it, and then next thing I knew, I spent $5,000 on becoming a health coach. And 2 years later, I keep adding endorsements because, as I get to when I started it, I was in one space. And now when I'm like mid 40s and I'm looking at, I could really use a class and be able to help women my age with their hormones. So let's take the hormone class. And, gut health is so important. So let's take that class. And so, because real estate is so busy, and because I am a very dedicated soccer mom, I do health coaching, but I don't do it. I'm very choosy about who I might take on as a client, for one, and then for two, it's a lot just for myself and my own family. Like my husband just did a half Ironman, and so his nutrition and all of that had to be dialed in order for him to be able to get through something like that. So I felt like, not to pat myself on the back, but I was very instrumental in that.
I'm sure you were. I was just with the person. It might have been the same half Ironman because I forgot the salt pills. I forgot my electrolytes. I'm crap. He's like a zombie crossing over the finish line. He could barely move his muscles by the end. So it is true. That's a lot of times make or break is the nutrition behind it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very cool. And who are your typical clients when you do operate as a health coach? Are they women? Are they moms? New babies? I mean, I'm a young mom.
Mostly
A lot of health things.
yeah. Mostly my own friends and family. So I belong to this gym that has this whole program on let's do this challenge and let's lose weight and let's do this. And I was noticing that they could get people to take it off, but they couldn't figure out how to help them keep it off.
Oh, that's
And
true.
so I thought someone needs to, it's not just about your macros or, your calorie intake or how many times you're working out during a week. It's more about where you're at hormonally and where you're at, what else is going on in your life and how much sleep you're getting. So I think, some of that became a little bit more important than making sure you can do 50 burpees in 3 minutes or something. So I just noticed that. So then I just started asking people in primarily my own friend group and my own workout situations if they needed additional help. So, but it's not something I really advertise because if I do something, I want to do it really well. So I'm very limited on how many people I might take on. So I usually am not more than 2 people at a time because I'm so busy with real estate. So
You're owning your calendar.
Some boundaries and things like that. Yes. That's amazing. I mean, you bring up so many points. I mean, women today just feel like they're under so much stress. And I mean, Melissa and I know what stress does when it comes to their money. Doesn't lead to a lot of good money making decisions, but comes to our health, our digestive systems, the food that we're just putting in, right? If I have a long day and I don't have time to eat, I go home and I binge. And I'm shoveling instead of just those steady intakes I need to do throughout the day. So it's so important to have somebody like you advocating for women in health. We're so busy, we're under stress. We really are taking care of our bodies stuff. But let's get back to real estate before we wrap up, because I want to know what's happening in the real estate markets right now. 'Cause it seems to be crazy.
Let me get out my crystal ball.
The Wild West. Let's go back to what's happened since the pandemic. I know by me, I'm in New Jersey, so we got a lot of people from New York City moving out to the country where I am. And then I was just in North Carolina, and then there's other people from Northeast moving south. What do you see happening? And you are in Michigan, correct?
I am in Michigan. We're on the West Coast, in the Spring Lake, Grand Haven area. So we are in a tourist town. And so that's been a blessing, because it is something that it's been a blessing and a curse. So, and you probably are seeing the same thing in your areas or even in North Carolina, where there's not very much inventory on the market, but then there's an influx of people coming from other states wanting to buy up. I had so many people during the pandemic that would say, well, I don't need to pay rent on this downtown Chicago apartment when I can go live on the water in Spring Lake and it costs me the same amount of money. And so they would leave that, because I'm going to end up working at home anyway. So then we had an influx of people especially from the Chicago area, coming in and buying up a lot of our waterfront. But then that left the people that might want to move up from, the economy was good for a really good time, and, they want to take their or downsize and buy a waterfront condo or something like that. Then a lot of that was gone. So we're still struggling
too.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Within hours, they're gone.
With multiple offers. I mean, I had one that I was competing and there were like 51 offers. And I was like, all right, we're going to try anyway.
Throw it in there. You never know.
Yeah. So that was a stressful time. It's slowed down a little bit in the sense that prices are starting to come down a little bit more and houses are staying on the market a little bit longer, depending on the price bracket that they're in. So it's leveling off a little bit, but even though the interest rates are higher, there are still a lot of people buying houses. So,
okay. That's what I was wondering, as interest rates are going up, and it's not as if they're high. They're high to relative where they were. It's just the speed. And that, Melissa, you can say too, for our clients, that's causing a lot of anxiety, uncertainty. It's just that rate at which they're going up. Do you see that putting a halt on the real estate market if interest rates continue to rise?
I think that so when it first happened, what I noticed this year was when it first happened in April or May, the interest rates really started to hike up then. I noticed that June was a very slow month, and that's rounding out the end of the spring season. So then I'm sitting there in June going, I haven't shown a house in 30 days. And I have a lot of clients, so I was just trying to figure out, if this is what June looks like, what does November look like? So that set a little bit of panic even in myself. But then it was like, all right, it still, might change my buying power a little bit. But at the end of the day, I need a place to live. And it's really still the cheapest way to borrow money. So then people got active again. And, August and September, in the beginning of October, were incredibly busy again. So, I was grateful for that. But now it always tends to slow down a little bit this time of year anyway. But
yes,
the interest rates are still continuing to rise. So we have noticed that there's a slowdown and we are being affected by it. But I think when people then still get back in the mindset of it being the least expensive way to borrow money still, and a very good investment, that my hope and my projection is that it's not going to be too much of a damper on us.
people are going to get used to these different rates. Right. They're just going to have to. What would you say?
So many people that will say, well, when I first bought my house, it was a 13% interest rate, something like that. And so if you get perspective from all generations, the interest rates yesterday were about 7.125 or something. And that's still not that bad. But
Yes. And how about the people who I'm going to wait for prices to come down and interest rates? Right? Do you guys? Feel them? Yeah. Are they just going to be waiting and waiting?
I think when the pain of not having a place to live gets high enough, then they'll say, okay, I
No.
And I think, the prices are coming down a little bit, but they're still affordable, or they're still higher than because we had such a trajectory up so fast with the prices of houses and people overpaying for them with a $50,000, flush from their parents or something like that to go buy a house for $400 and pay $500 for it. And, just the insanity that was happening with the market and the housing prices that really made everything go super high. So I think it's not necessarily that prices are coming down. I just think they're leveling off a little bit.
Oh, that's good to know.
I think it's interesting how when it comes to housing, we'll overpay.
We're fine doing that.
Yeah. But then in the stock market and investing for retirement, say, I want to wait till the market goes up until I start investing again.
Yes. It's the opposite.
Of what
if you're looking for the bargains,
exactly.
Look at what's the stock market. It's a great point, Melissa. Yeah. It doesn't make sense when you put it into perspective. And that we love everything else on sale but stocks.
Right.
Yeah. Well, when you don't know, I'm not someone, I just lean on Melissa. When you don't know, or you see your account going down and then it's like, well, this is a good time to put more money in, even though you're losing it, and buy more. And then, it's a little okay, I'm just going to trust.
Could you imagine if on our real estate or properties, we got a monthly statement showing the value? How different it would be.
Yeah, definitely. Or even when you're sitting in a closing and the person facilitating the closing hands over the amortization statement of a 30-year mortgage, and you see just how much interest you do pay at the end. And they always say, when you're bored, you can look at that. Or if you can't sleep, you can look at this. And they try to push it aside because it's really discouraging.
It is. It is. I heard, I want to say it's in England, it's a 50 or 60-year mortgage. Wow. How scary would it be if we brought that over here? And now because you see, you're buying different houses. So that initial 30-year mortgage, you move in 5-10 years to another 30-year mortgage, and then maybe you move again. That initial 30-year mortgage actually did become like a 60-year mortgage. Right. You just kept extending it more and more. People would do the same thing. So a 6-year mortgage, it's going to be a 100-year mortgage by the end of it.
Yeah, it's like rolling negative equity from a car loan into your next car and then just continuing to do so. Yeah.
This has been very insightful, Leigh and Melissa. Thank you both for being on here. Any final thoughts, Melissa or Leigh, as we wrap this up? And then I want to give everybody a chance to be able to follow you, check out your websites, all that good stuff. But any final thoughts? We talked about generosity. We talked about networking, relationships, connection. What else did we do? Our celebrity moments. I feel like we addressed that in today's episode. Real estate, health, all really good things.
They're all interconnected, right?
Say that again.
When you start, I think all of those different topics, even though they're separate, there's also a connection between all of them. And I've interviewed tons of women for my book, and when I ask them what money means to them, they always say security. And then when we talk about generosity, a lot of times it's hard for someone to give because they're uncertain about where they stand with their money, or they think they need to have X amount before they can give. And I would just like to encourage all of the listeners to today, make a decision in one regard as to how you can be more generous. And it doesn't always have to be your money. It could be your time and volunteering at a golf event or doing something that's on your heart that really speaks to you. If it makes you cry, if it gets to your heart, it's probably what you should be really strongly considering getting involved in some way, shape, or form.
That's a great question.
Especially if it keeps coming back up. That's kind of what I was,
Yeah.
I keep thinking, like, if something, like, oh, I have thought about writing a book. So, but I just I haven't taken the time to actually sit down and do it until very recently. But then, because I keep trying to pay attention and like take my own, if I'm going to tell someone else to do it, I should do the same thing and not be a hypocrite with my words. But so if it keeps landing on you and it keeps coming back up, I think that means that God put all of the tools inside of you in order to be able to accomplish that. And so just listen to the things that keep knocking on your heart. So
That's a great check-in. Yeah, what keeps coming up when you're sitting, when you're driving, when you're at work? There's something that's pulling you to something bigger. And in the end, we know God's going to give us the time to get it done or the finances to get it done. Right? We can have that trust and that faith. And if you need help with that, you know where to find us. It's all we talk about. God's a multiplier. He's not a divider, in my book, at least. So thank you, ladies. Both great points. If it's pulling at your heart, go ahead and do it. God's going to find you the resources. And take some time today to think about that. So thank you, Melissa Myers, for being on here. Thank you, Leigh Lohman. Where can everybody find you?
For me, melissamyersgroup.com is a great place to start.
Perfect. melissamyersgroup.com. How about you, Leigh?
I have multiple websites, but I would say leihlohman.com is a great one. And then also my real estate one is capstonerealestate.net.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. We'll probably have to have you back on. I want to learn more about the real estate and some of those, especially the beginning deals. There's so much more to real estate that meets the eye. There's so many different ways to make money in real estate, and it is an asset. So, well, thank you both for being on here. Thank you to all of our listeners, our money queens. Cannot wait to see you on our next Women Behind the Millions.